Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our monthly Community Advisory Board meeting for Atlanta's Community Clean Renewable Energy Plan development process. My name is Megan O'Neill. I'm the Program Manager for Policy and Sustainability Services with Southeast Institute, and we have been brought on by Athens-Clarke County to develop and deliver a clean energy plan, as well as work with y'all to make that happen. So Mike Wharton, who usually joins us and kicks things off with this meeting, is not available today and asked me to come in his stead. And so I'll go ahead and run things. I'm sorry you guys are going to miss him. I know he's sorry he can't be here today. So I'll just start off with the standard disclaimer of this is a public meeting. As such, the meeting is being recorded as well as live streamed on YouTube as we speak. And this recording will be posted on the Athens-Clarke County website, which is accgov.com/100. So let's kick things off. Today's April 21st. And our agenda for today is to walk through our attendance and objectives. Then we've got a good handful of stuff to run through that we want to wrap up with a deeper level discussion. So we want to report out on the stakeholder one-on-ones that have been ongoing that Mike and Maggie and Andrew have been executing, as well as do a report out from the 3 town halls that we've had so far. Provide y'all with an update of the community survey that launched a few weeks ago. Talk through the plan development look ahead and some processes to work with you guys to get that over the finish line, and then do a deeper level discussion into strategies for community engagement. And then we'll wrap things up. So let's lead off by taking attendance. I'll just call off the names of the organizations, and if you're in attendance, let me know and indicate your name. And I'll start with myself, Megan O'Neill, and I'll close out with any Athens-Clarke County staff that have joined. So Athens Land Trust, are you here today? Athens Land Trust. Great. Northeast Georgia Business Alliance. Again, that's Northeast Georgia Business Alliance. Action Inc. W&A Engineering.
Here.
Is that Amy?
Me.
Amy. USGBC Athens.
That would be Tom Lawrence.
Hey, Tom. Athens Technical College. Great. Athens Housing Authority. 100% Athens.
This is Dan Everett. I'm substituting for Michael Songster today.
Hi, Dan. Oh, and that reminds me, Michael Songster is absent. I should also apologize on behalf of Maggie Songster, who usually joins us and is also unable to join today for similar reasons. East Athens Development Corporation.
Caleb Spencer.
Hi, Caleb. Athens Area Home Builders Association.
Don Newland.
Right. I'm fairly certain there's no one else from Greenlink or Southface on the line right now, but if you are, please speak up. And are there any ex officio members of Athens-Clarke County government on the line? All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. We went ahead and covered all of the attendance here. And so just recapping our objectives is to update you on the conversations we've been having to date and the outreach efforts, and do a look ahead and discussion on where we go next with plan writing and continued outreach. So with regard to the business leaders, we have continued to have quite a few of these, which Mike has been leading, and Southface participates where relevant, but mostly this is the county leading the charge, and they've shared the following notes with us, which I'll report out to you. So competition fuels progress. We're hearing throughout the community that providing visibility into those who are already performing well and taking ambitious action to advance clean energy want recognition, and also want to see examples of others that are doing it, that essentially creating competition, providing added visibility to what's already happening will continue to advance progress. So also with regard to regulations, There's not necessarily an aversion to regulations, but there is a very strong emphasis on the need to craft well-designed and then implement intelligently regulations to advance clean energy in the built environment and ensuring that the costs and benefits are equitably shared. Excuse me. All right. So then with regard to education around how to engage in clean energy, there's also, people cite a bit of a blind spot or a vacuum locally where there are plenty of entities out there that are interested in advancing their buildings to make them more energy efficient, to get solar panels installed, to learn about other ways that they can make progress, but they don't really know where to go. They don't know how to, like, who's a qualified contractor? How do you know if they're qualified? What kinds of scope should you even be asking for? So requests around things like potential proposal material, scopes of work, or even insights into professional credentials that you should be looking for when you're hiring a solar installer or an energy efficiency performer. Like if you're hiring someone to build your building, you look for a PE or an RA. Is there some equivalent for that within some of these building level performance improvements, aside from the PE and RA, which do perform a good bit of those? So there's also recurring themes around the complexity of multifamily ownership and the financial disincentives that often result as a result of just the frequency of the capital cycles of multifamily properties, as well as the renter-tenant issue. And that split incentive, which could theoretically be branched through green leasing adoption, but that's a tricky topic that everyone's still trying to work through. There's a desire to really highlight the total cost of affordability. So building level energy improvements, as we all know, are not free, but they do help save energy in the long run. But there's definitely an aversion in these upfront capital cycles and investments to invest in these improvements on the front end when you're not necessarily sure if you're going to see the savings on the back end, or if you're not factoring in that life cycle cost into how you conduct your financial analysis before you embark on new projects. And there's also an emphasis on just the need for competitive advantages to lead to market transformation and changes towards energy investment. So an example of an opportunity here that has worked in other jurisdictions is something like a benchmarking policy, where if the government does a strong job highlighting how buildings are performing, then that can help move the market to encourage others to make similar level performance improvements. Other requests that have come in through the business leaders are a desire for tax incentives over a period of time, looking at considerations like property tax abatement or incentives, or similar structures to TADs in exchange for energy efficiency measures in buildings, as well as identifying ways that you can pass savings on to renters. So I'll cite with the tax example, those weren't necessarily specific design ideas so much as the county needs to find ways through the tax code to potentially lift up and facilitate these investments for building owners. So in conversations with community organizations, some common themes that came up were a desire for things that are already happening, like community gardens, but people definitely want to continue to expand green space. There's also a lot of interest in this greenscaping or site level development, such as stormwater catchment and rain gardens, as well as how do you make sure that you're getting the benefits of clean energy like solar to properties like schools where the resources for upfront investment may not be as easily available. Even things as basic as converting to LEDs, which is basic for the commercial sector at a large scale these days, there's still a bit of that knowledge gap about how do you find the products, how do you finance the investment, and justify that in your capital cycles. And they're also seeing themes with the community organizations around the need to reduce energy costs and a desire to do that. Applications being made to some existing programs that might exist for solar panels, but those are very competitive projects and few and far between. And trying to think about the need for a long-term energy management plan to structure these capital planning and investments, which is certainly a great proactive move, but requires some support and subject matter expertise to know how to even approach that. All right, so another question that we asked was, if an organization is not currently engaged in energy sustainability, why is that? What are some of the barriers that have prevented you from doing that so far? The major one that comes up is renters don't have a whole lot of say in what happens to their building. And they're often afraid about complaining about different issues they face for fear of eviction. And more marginalized communities, low-income communities, immigrant communities are particularly wary of any sort of complaint to landlords because there's just that heightened vulnerability that exists. And because of that, they won't bring up energy savings changes, even when it comes to some of these basic structural issues like working appliances and fixing broken windows. Equity and communication comes up. The work available isn't necessarily diverse enough, and the marginalized communities tend to be the last to know about initiatives and energy savings benefits. And the financial burdens at the community level can be very significant and make upfront costs for investments like solar very difficult, and even make items like LED moderately difficult. And it's hard to budget for those expenses and justify the ROI if you're not going to be staying in the space you're renting for a long period of time. So piggybacking onto that, we asked what are some ways that the government could potentially support you in advancing sustainability? So one was around jobs and engaging people at resource and jobs fairs, and having ACC Gov potentially even come to a table and attend those events and play a more active role. Ensuring that new jobs address livable wage is really key. And the feedback we're getting is that people really want to be paid not just for jobs that are created, but be paid for the training that they have to undergo to participate in these jobs, because the cost of just your time and effort to participate in trainings is very real. For someone's looking to work 40 hours, it's absolutely essential that they should be able to pay their bills for working those hours. And there's continued emphasis on the need for protection for immigrant workers. So other ways they identified that ACC could help factored in around education. So increasing communication and advertising around the programs that do exist right now and hopefully continue to grow in the future, and their benefits in terms of helping make it easier to advance clean energy. Using local radio, news, podcasts, flyer, churches, and other to spread the word about these programs, because so far the word isn't getting out nearly as much as it could. Also, just ACC continuing to take the time to talk to people in person about what a clean energy transition means for individuals and ways that people as individuals can take action themselves to move the needle. There's also an opportunity flagged for educational workshops for different organizations as well as communities around efficiency. Excuse me. And there's also a desire for someone like ACC or some other convener to potentially play a convener role or a clearinghouse role of just maintaining information on the different kinds of programs and resources that are out there, as well as potential connect points to help people identify and then connect with utility incentives or other financing incentives that might be available. The knowledge gap is real, and also there's such a broad abundance of places and applications that people potentially need to apply to participate in some of these energy efficiency programs, and just the logistics associated with it can be prohibitive for people because it really can involve a lot of time and investment. So anything that the county can do to help alleviate that struggle is very much desired from those with whom we've been speaking to date. So then a few other questions that came up or really continued onto that were helping with issues around renter protection and landlord compliance. So going ahead and just enforcing existing energy codes and making sure that buildings stay up to code. Marketing the support of the Office of Housing and Community Development when it does have programs that can help advance energy efficiency and otherwise. Creating a renter's toolkit to help ensure that people are receiving livable conditions and know their rights, like a tenant handbook or one sheets, policy around standardized clean energy requirements, and creating low or no cost audits. And then on the financial side, another support item that was mentioned by community members was a desire for funding or incentives to help with solar installations, lower property taxes, financial benefits, and an easier return on investment for measures that people undertake. Then with regard to strategies that they would caution Athens-Clarke County government from taking, involved concerns around or fears that this county won't address equity and fair wage opportunities first and might prioritize methods that could potentially exacerbate equity and affordability issues. There are also concerns about ensuring that rental spaces are assessed and meet livable conditions before you bother to go in and install energy savings measures. And also quite a bit of feedback about avoiding unfunded mandates. So don't pass restrictions around increasing building performance without providing some resources to help community members comply with those mandates. With regard to what long-term concerns community members have about progress towards this 100% clean renewable energy commitment, we got a lot of feedback that, excuse me?
Could I ask a question before you go on?
Sure.
So there's several things in here related to people, who renters of property and the relationship between renters and landlords and that sort of thing. And I guess, one slide, I think it said, enforce livable, or maybe here, make sure, enforce whatever standards are on the books, I guess, that exist. But I'm just curious, and I'm not sure that anybody on this can answer this question right now, but what do we have in Athens-Clarke County regulations that would, currently anyway, that would make a property owner, and in this case a landlord, do any sort of upgrades having to do with efficiency? I just wonder, I suppose I assume there's some building codes that I wonder if we have any building codes that relate to energy efficiency of a building. I doubt it. I imagine it's more about safety, than about, so anyway, I just wanted to, since that came up several times, I just wanted to throw that in there now before I forgot.
Sure. I could take a stab at that, but I'll bet there are people on the call who have some insights that I'd want to lead first before I try to speak for them on the Athens specific context. Or I can jump in, I guess. Please jump in and interrupt me if I start speaking out of line or if you all have anything to add. So you're right, it's really tricky. Code enforcement is really important, but generally building owners don't have to prove compliance with energy codes very often, because it's usually when you're building the building, when there are no tenants, or if you have to pull a permit. So if you're going to invest in a major level renovation or otherwise, that would require a building inspection. And so those touch points are few and far between, maybe once or twice in a building's life cycle, maybe more, but it's not super frequently. And so that's really hard. And just this issue, I think in different parts of the country, this is handled differently. There are different kinds of regulations around quality of tenant spaces and more forums through which, like tenants' rights groups or consumer protection agencies that exist at the governmental level, are there to help tenants ensure that these improvements are being made. I think you're right on point with the life safety concerns. I think that's really about the only place where that becomes a factor with regard to energy efficiency. And so at the most fundamental level, that would be things like broken windows or leaky roofs, major plumbing repairs.
Just add in on that, you're right. The most, in general, across, the code enforcement is done for life safety stuff. The energy codes depend on where you're at around, and it also depends on if they're enforced or not.
Okay, that's just what I was wondering. When talking about letting tenants know what their rights are, I'm not sure that there are any rights that would allow them to go to their landlord and say, hey, I want I want you to add insulation for my home, or do other things that, might be recommended, unless right now, I doubt if we have those kinds of things in the code. So
yeah, that's something we can do some research on, Amy, because I think that's an important point that we should follow up on. So we can do some digging into Georgia code for you and send around a little update. It might take us maybe a few weeks to get that to you, but we can have that as a follow-up item. Right. I'm just making sure if I've covered all these different talking points here. I think on Q5, which was just a continuation of what concerns might people have about the commitment itself, don't want to create institutions that'll further exacerbate these concerns around livable wage and affordability. They want to make sure that the commitments used to create good opportunities with higher level living wages. I want to make sure that the barriers that currently exist to achieving this transition are acknowledged and addressed. So exactly what we were just teasing into in terms of what mechanisms exist to make sure that your building is efficient. And then they also want the county to be very mindful of avoiding unintended consequences. So making sure to look downstream to the maximum extent possible about the potential impact of different measures that the county might contemplate. If you're requiring a very ambitious building performance policy that can make buildings more expensive, could that also lead to displacement? There's definitely a desire on the part of the community for the county to factor in these considerations as they're contemplating different policy options and really seeing the full scale of community impacts, both positive and negative, that could result from any given item. Then in terms of continued partnership opportunities that people are interested in seeing expanded, working with landlords and renters once again came up, not surprising. So mention of incentives for landlords who do provide quality level efficiency upgrades, as well as renter education on the measures that they are actually able to undertake themselves. Talking about higher zoning standards for all landlords, as well as requiring changes so that no one loses their competitive prices. I want to state that I am not certain that zoning standards are the mechanism for rental issues, but I'm just repeating back one of the comments that were made on our end. I just wanted to make clear that that was feedback and not necessarily a policy route, although the policy end goal is certainly clear. In terms of increasing communication and knowledge between tenant and landlords, how do you continue to foster those relationships so they're collaborative and not combative? And compiling a citywide list of identifiable issues that are being overlooked or not addressed to push for solutions. And a very common theme is working with utility providers to help bridge the gap from energy programs to programs for home repairs and other necessary service. All right, so in terms of what partnerships would you like to see? They also fed directly into education. So homeowner education on finding a good contractor when making improvements. Increase education for measures that people could already be easily undertaking, and vote on things like weatherization, especially these first cost, low cost measures, including education sessions and outreach around benefits and programs in terms of clean energy improvements, reaching out to high schools now to start the conversation around labor and career pathways that may exist in these fields, as well as helping people understand the ROI for these energy savings initiatives and really look at this life cycle costing. And then, once again, including the community in conversations to provide input into different opportunities, education sessions, and more to really help further community engagement to the maximum extent that we're able. Funding is also an opportunity that the community sees for the government to provide support. So programs like revolving loan funds that exist specifically for energy efficiency and solar were definitely of interest to folks, as well as ensuring that the money and jobs going towards electricity and gas are not leaving the community. So they don't want to create career displacement by transitioning away to cleaner energy sources. There's an emphasis on wanting to hire local and keep any funds associated with this transition in the community. And there's also a mention that if solar panels were more affordable, more people would be using them. And so measures that the county can take to help increase affordability of solar panels and other clean energy investment is certainly welcome. We have connected with one more utility provider with one of the EMCs, and it was really kind of fascinating to have that conversation with them about what drives them. And when I say what drives them, in terms of the influence of the customer versus the investor. So EMCs are very much member driven. And with those different drivers, the C&I or commercial and industrial customers are still considered important to the utility, just as they are with investor-owned utilities like Georgia Power. So power providers generally or strongly recommended, as we're speaking to all the ones with whom we've spoken, that clean energy credits as an alternative for customers can be a really effective mechanism for ensuring additionality of renewables on the grid through creating additional sources that might not be on a rooftop or on a building site, but they could still be produced locally. And with the EMCs, the customer demand for that can really help influence their decision making around continuing to make those available. Power providers are continuing to hear interest in community solar-like projects. And ROI is often the deal breaker for some customers when it comes to clean energy investments. And so utilities are hearing just what we are, where cost is important. People may be interested in energy efficiency and renewable energy, but the cost argument needs to be there. But on the EMC side, they listen to their customers, and they are already undertaking quite a few new solar projects based purely on demand from their customers that are coming in. All right, so in terms of the public town halls, I know a few of you have attended to date, and thank you so much for joining. I think they're getting a little smoother with each iteration, and thank you for your initial feedback after the first. I think it really helped feed into the second one running smoothly. So just to remind you, for the town halls, the objectives were to provide information on the goal itself, as well as respond to questions from the public on progress and on future plans, as well as gather feedback from the public on community priorities in clean energy planning. So we've done 3 so far, which are 1, 2, 3 there. The first one had 17 attendees, if we're counting those of you who were able to join. The second had 5. The third had 13. The fourth, which was scheduled for tomorrow, we are currently rescheduling because Mike was not available. Neither Mike nor Maggie were available tomorrow due to some last minute conflicts. So we'll push out to something in early May. All right, and then the 5th town hall, which will end up being the 4th town hall, is scheduled for April 27th. So what have we heard so far? There are definitely a lot of questions coming up on who is the Sustainability Office planning to collaborate with in the development of this plan, as well as discussions around opportunities for solar installations and potential conflicts and overlap with other development, natural lands and historic farmland. So a desire to achieve a clean energy transition, but not at the cost of removing some of the wonderful green space that Athens has worked hard to build. There are lots of questions about how can we ensure that we're applying equity in hiring and pay labor benefits for workers from marginalized communities that are entering the clean energy field. And so that includes items like prevailing wages, paid opportunities while in training programs, apprenticeship standards that align with the labor department, as well as questions about how could this increase the average wage in ACC? How far can this go in terms of creating benefits? And then there were also questions about hydroelectric on the Oconee. That was just Town Hall 1. Town Hall 2, once again, questions about what other community partners are you working with that aren't listed. So we had some questions about to what degree are Oconee and Jackson counties being included in these conversations. There were also conversations around the need to address zoning reform as being excluded from the potential pathways towards clean energy. So with comments like reducing our overall carbon footprint, which might include transportation, means getting people closer to jobs, parks, grocery stores, and more. There's also talk about building a solar-ready workforce and to what degree the county has a plan to create opportunities for investment and trainings in workforce development. Will those jobs be guaranteed at fair or prevailing wages? Others asking how many people from marginalized communities have been employed by local clean energy employers to date, and questions around if ACC is willing to push for policy that will help protect local workers. And then there are other questions about what resistance to this program is currently in the community. In the 3rd town hall, there were some good questions about SPLOST funding and programming to date. Andrew Saunders led that town hall on Mike's behalf, so the timing was good since he could speak to those updates well, as well as some questions around the ACC Gov solar programs to date. There was a question about if ACC has a carbon footprint that it's been taking, and the answer to that was that through the ACES modeling, we have a good insight into the building-specific carbon, and that the county is planning to do a deeper level greenhouse gas inventory across sectors, which would include things like waste in the near-term future. There are questions about why nuclear energy isn't currently listed in the sources of clean and renewable energy. as well as about the Athens airport and opportunities for solar installations at that building, as well as opportunities to partner with the airport to help them advance the goal in partnership with the city. And acknowledging issues like fuel sources from jet fuel and otherwise can be major contributors to climate change locally. There are questions about how many residential homes have been served through the Athens Land Trust Efficiency Project. So we're going to pull those numbers and share them out as follow-up to that meeting, as well as some questions about what role can energy managers play to help support small and medium-sized businesses in achieving this transition, given how under-resourced they can often be when it comes to having resources to dedicate to active energy efficiency and energy management. And then again, there's discussion of accountability for the county when it comes to plan implementation and avoiding exacerbating effects like gentrification. So want to kind of get real and then ask for your feedback in a minute about, we want this to be a process of continuous improvement. And there were definitely some lessons learned in 1, 2, and I suppose 3 as well. So the first was audio challenges. For those of you who joined, you can attest to the fact that we used a different platform. I see your question, Amy, and just because someone from our team is going to listen, I'm just going to read it out loud because someone from our team is going to listen to the chat and transcript and do follow-up. So just for the record, I'm going to read it, which is concerning the Athens Land Trust program. Do they have any data about power bills before and after work? That would be interesting to see and hear what they are doing. I agree, that would be interesting. We'll add that to our follow-up too. All right, and so we used a different platform at the advice of the Athens Public Information Officer, which is called WebEx Events. That's different from the platform we're using right now, which is WebEx Meetings. With WebEx Meetings, we can all turn on our cameras, participants and hosts alike. We could all theoretically share our screen, and we have the ability to turn mute on and off ourselves as a default setting. For WebEx Events, it's generally designed for larger scale meetings. My understanding is that's the platform that was used for virtual commission meetings. And it allows for public comment, but it's a bit more structured where the moderator has the ability to prevent sort of Zoom bombs of where you could theoretically eject a misbehaving user if you need to. Hopefully things will never come to that when it comes to clean energy planning, so you never know. And they also from the technological standpoint, they said the fewer people on video stream, the better for the efficacy of the platform. But that led to some challenges because you couldn't necessarily see faces. And for the first meeting, the structure of having people do a digital raise hand to then have someone on our team manually turn on their microphone to allow them to speak and then turn off the microphone, it created some awkwardness conversationally. And so for the second meeting, we did learn that we are able to at least give people the ability to mute and unmute themselves, which made it less awkward, but you still couldn't see faces. So we acknowledge that's a shortcoming of the platform and something we want to think about. And then there were also the timing and pace of the presentation. The first presentation ran a lot longer than we would have liked. That was our issue. So we omitted some of the details of the ACES slides that involve the very high level graphics and breakdown, which I'm sure you've seen. And we took some of the key data points from those, like the job creation numbers and otherwise, and incorporated those across earlier slides in the presentation to reduce the total number of slides and allow more time for conversation, which seemed to be helpful with meetings 2 and 3 because we managed to get through the presentation content faster. So aside from those, we did have a few other causes for concern, which is just that attendance was pretty low. I'll get back to the previous slide just to hang on. So you can see here, the first one we had 17 attendees, the second one we had 5, the third we had 13. I think we've had pretty robust conversations in all 3, but I know if we were doing this in person, we'd probably have at least 3 times that number, if not more, in some of these based on past experiences I've had in other regions. So, but then again, we are in a virtual environment and it's understandable that people might want to minimize the amount of time they spend in front of screens already. But anyway, We did have low attendance. The way that we tried to promote the event was through reaching out to all of our different charrette invitees that participated earlier in the year, reaching out to y'all, reaching out to peer sustainability NGOs to ask them to help get the word out. Many of them did through their social media platforms and newsletter lists. We posted on the ACC Sustainability Office Facebook page. We ran some print media ads, and we were able to do a radio spot on WUGA. But numbers still weren't ideal. And so what I wanted to use the time now for was to hear from you guys, both for those of you who participated, your takes on how maybe we could continue to improve the format that we have in place, but also how can we get the word out better? Are there, not just in terms of executing awareness for these events, but also just generally, are there other forms through which we need to be conducting outreach in order to make sure that we're really touching a broad swath of the community? And with that, I'll leave it open to you.
Well, this is Tom Lawrence. One suggestion I think I have I guess last year we started planning all that, and I didn't hear that there maybe reaching out if you want to attract or reach out to certain parts of the community, go through the various churches. That aspect of that, I mean, just they could announce that in their service or some of that's just one thing that had popped in my mind back last year when we were first talking about this.
That's a great thought. Are there locally any sort of existing faith networks that are coalitions of church groups that meet?
Well, that I don't know, but yeah,
Okay.
Somebody might know.
Yeah, that gets us started in our research.
Yeah, we've been working through with the local Unitarian Universalist Fellowship and connecting with the Archdiocese in Atlanta, and the Archdiocese really, got the big operation going on there, right? They make us feel like pretty small potatoes, so really trying to work with them.
Okay, that's a Catholic Archdiocese?
Yes.
Okay.
Megan, how long did the town halls last on average?
90 minutes. So the first one we ran a little bit over just because our presentation was long, so we wanted to create space for conversation.
Is the thinking that after this first round of town halls, you'll try to do more, or will that be it? I'm just wondering if maybe a condensed format that it could be incorporated into other existing, just kind of thinking of, I'm on a lot of the Chamber of Commerce Zoom meetings, and certainly a 90-minute plan might not draw as much of a crowd as a 15-minute condensed town hall. But I mean, I was just curious about that.
Yeah, so you mean like help get on the agendas for some of these existing meetings and give shorter form presentations?
Yeah. Even with the Home Builders Association, there's a monthly meeting, and that actually is in person, but they do for participants or sponsors, and it doesn't have to be a monetary sponsorship, but they do have set aside 15 or 20 minutes for people to speak on certain things. And so, yeah, if you could get on the agenda on existing meetings like that, if only to maybe promote it and or promote a longer format at a later time. So
yeah, those are great thoughts. Would you mind if we reached out to you for some follow-up questions on maybe highlighting which organizations to try to schedule with?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thanks.
And are the town halls available, videos of those available, or at least the presentation part on the website?
The video should be available. I'm not sure if it's posted on the website. I know it's intended to be posted on the website, so I can find out as part of our follow-up.
Maybe, I agree with John that 90 minutes is probably a long time, but maybe, I think that's a great idea, like shorter, and then say if you want to see the full, because I do think the presentation was great. I was at the first town hall, and I really did think it was well done, and I'm sure y'all have made a few adjustments to it, but but it is a long time. So maybe you'd have shorter ones to kind of tease people and let them know kind of what's out there, and then they can on their own time. If that town hall, if the presentation part is available, they don't have to watch the Q&A or anything unless they want to, but so.
Yeah, that's a great thought. What are some other groups that convene that might be good for us to try to get in front of?
I mean, Envision Athens might be a group to, I mean, they have a great social media presence, and I mean, I know we have a connection with them, so we sent them information. And I think somebody from Athens-Clarke County did reach out to them, so I know they did post the information about the town halls. But I don't know whether they would do any sort of live video, or, I mean, I guess Athens-Clarke County Sustainability, could they do a live video, a live Facebook thing on their Facebook page? I mean,
yeah. All right, thanks. Now, that's a good thought. And I think that's something that just makes a lot of sense. If people are already meeting, it's not a whole lot of extra added effort on their part for us to show up and crash a meeting for a few minutes if they're willing. So that's a really great thought, to just take advantage of existing networks. Okay, then we have
Sorry, one other. There's sorry to interrupt. The what is it called? Have you done anything with the U.S. Green Building Council?
I'm not sure. Tom, have there been any formal events that the county's undertaken with y'all yet?
We had a little bit there. I send it out the link every month, or every time we have the meetings, to the group. There's one or two people that have attended and listened in on, but there really hasn't been a formal discussion with that I'd say. I'm sort of acting as the intermediary. I think, the group is actually just kind of looking and seeing what's going to shake out on this, and then they could be a good partner for an eventual implementation.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I know in Atlanta, when I worked for the city of Atlanta and we were putting our clean energy plan together and some outreach, we partnered with local AIA as well as USGBC to kind of create this kind of tailored lunch events that people could also get CEUs for participation in, by inviting some local green building practitioners to join as well. So that could potentially be a forum or an approach. Then, are there other local entities like BOMA that are active in Athens? I'm sorry, this is me speaking as the Atlantan on the call, but
yeah, I know BOMA, but I'm not aware. There might be. I just haven't heard of it.
okay.
Here, we're kind of small here compared to Atlanta.
I'm guessing, I mean, I think the attendance obviously is a concern, but on the other hand, I also think that sometimes things like this, it's hard for people to really think, how does this, until they hear something or read something in the flagpole that they're like, uh-oh, that's bad, and then they get engaged. It is hard to get people to pay attention until they see that it's going to affect them. And I mean, unfortunately, I should know this, but has the flagpole run anything? Does anyone know about it?
I
don't know, but that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know that they have, and the flagpole. I mean, again, for the churches, it'd be great to reach different demographics. Yeah. But I
kind of read flagpole every week, and I don't remember seeing anything on this.
Yeah, I don't think they have, but I'm trying to think. What are some other outlets? I mean, if we want to, and again, I think. And 90 minutes is a long time, and I don't know whether when we're finished with these town halls, we might want to look at, as John suggested, coming up with a shorter format, and maybe, okay, what is the format that we want to go to the immigrant community, and the Athens Immigrant Rights Coalition, or some of the people, the organizations that represent those, and what could we do as short term. And how about, African American churches, or I don't know. I mean, we may want to kind of think about shorter presentations and how we get those out to people, or Or even
Yeah.
just, again, I don't know how many radio interviews we've done, but I still think that's, that's obviously a way to reach a lot of people. And I don't know what we've done in that. I think Maggie, I don't know how that went, if we've done many radio interviews.
Yeah, those were the churches I was talking about. I was trying to be quiet about, but that's where I think we try to reach out to a demo. That's important, and you can get a lot of people that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Megan, have you all ever done any kind of almost like a highlight video that could be on YouTube? Maggie and I talked briefly about it, kind of like a marketing, highlight thing that could be used across the board, and you could also, have it. You could have the Spanish translation. You could use it in a lot of different ways, and it could be, linked to things like a face or a flagpole article. So just didn't know if you all have done anything like that, but I could see how that could kind of become an evergreen thing that just could be used on many platforms.
Yeah, that's a great thought. These all are great thoughts. One thing that I was wondering about asking you was I monitor other cities that are undergoing similar processes just to see what tactics they're using. And the group that's organizing some of Asheville's clean energy planning efforts has put together just a series of very kind of informal videos of community members speaking about what clean energy means to them, how it affects their daily lives, and they're just maintaining a YouTube posting of uploading those. And their version of CAB members are also recording kind of these brief explanations about how clean energy actually affects humans in the community. Is that something you think might be interesting to try in Athens?
Well, I think definitely. Yeah.
And we might reach out to y'all for some further thoughts on that, or some volunteers potentially.
And do you know what radio stations we've done? By chance, know? Maybe that was listed.
I think so far it's just WUGA.
Yeah, I mean, which is great, but I mean, I do think that reaches, WXAG reaches a pretty broad audience, and so
whatever the 1021 is.
Yeah, Magic 102. Yeah, I mean, I do think that's a way of, because again, I mean, maybe you don't have an hour-long program, but you at least tell people the essentials, maybe take some questions, and then tell them where they can find the information. And I think we should, I mean, I didn't volunteer to do one of those, and frankly, because I just don't feel like I'm really interested, and I'm really interested in the public input on it, but I don't feel like I'm as well versed in a lot of the technicalities as some other people on the CAB. So that's kind of why I didn't really volunteer to do those. But I think the radio stations is a great way to reach a broad audience. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Hi, this is Bailey. Sorry I'm late. I just want to chime in. We've been on WUGA, and then other radio stations that we have that we're in contact with, but I don't have confirmation from Maggie yet if they've run the ads, but that we've submitted things to are WGAU 98.7, and then WXAG 92.7, and the college station 90.5 Wulog. So those are the other ones that we have on our list.
Well, I have a contact at WXAG. So if we want to get on one of their programs, I can reach out to them.
That's great. Thank you. This could be an opportunity for us to just shamelessly ask, do any of y'all have other contacts that you'd be up for volunteering to help reach out to either get us in front of a meeting for a quick pitch deck, or any sort of media outlets or newsletters that you think you could help us just help get the word out through in whatever format makes sense?
Hi, this is Caleb. Speaking on the radio access, I know that Fred Smith, who's the executive director at EADC, he does a lot of kind of radio work, and I think it's WXAG, so he could be another contact, and I can kind of reach out to him a little bit more and kind of push that. But I think that Bailey mentioned that they already were in contact with someone at WXAG, but Fred Smith could be another person.
I think that was Caleb speaking. I think for both you and Amy, if you could email Maggie with that info that you guys both have contacts, I think that will be helpful for her, and she can loop you in as she needs you, because she's coordinating those efforts.
Okay.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for your insights. We'll bring up community engagement strategies towards the end too, but I'll go ahead and just give a quick overview of the community survey updates we've been receiving. So again, thank you so much for your feedback and helping us shape that survey. We're about to gear up and developing a second business community survey that'll be targeted towards business leaders that we'll be sharing out with y'all. So the objectives of this initial survey was very much focused on community and level of support for the clean energy target to date, engaging that level of support, as well as gauging community attitudes around appropriate clean energy sources and prioritization of policies and programs. So I'm just going to share some basic demographic info because we haven't received a ton of responses yet. We've got 75, which is certainly a good start, but it's a little premature to say that we have comprehensive findings that we can use to operate any conclusions around. So more at this point, we just want to highlight who we are and aren't hearing from so that we can help maximize our outreach to make sure we're hearing from everybody and not just a small sectors of the community. So this is a breakdown of where do respondents live. 97.2% of respondents do live in Athens-Clarke County. The majority of the respondents so far live in zip codes 30605 and 30606, at 23 and 35 each. And then for the other zip codes, it's just a handful of respondents from each of those. In terms of respondents working in the county, 62% of the respondents work in ACC, 38% do not work in ACC, but most likely live in ACC. In terms of gender and age, the light blue here indicates men, dark blue indicates women. So moderately even gender split so far with 38 women, 31 men. My understanding is that women are more likely to respond to surveys than men, so this isn't super surprising. And then the age breakdowns you're seeing, most respondents are in their 30s or over 60. In terms of race and ethnicity, respondents so far are 82.2% white, 4% Black or African, 1.4% Hispanic, Latinx, 2.7% two or more races, 9.6% prefer not to answer. These categories were pulled based on census designations, just so that we can make sure that we're weighting things accordingly when we do our analysis after we get all of our responses in. In terms of plan development look ahead, we are getting close, just a few months out from putting pen to paper and having to think about what goes into this plan, what policies and priorities rise to the surface from our community engagement and are informed by the modeling and analysis that GreenLink has done through its ACEs and energy burden tools. And so we kind of just wanted to tease this out with you guys right now and get your feedback. So where we see clear opportunities for CAB input in this is highlighting the community values and articulating the local why for clean energy, as well as identifying and highlighting successes from the Athens area. Lifting up goals that we want to achieve through the clean energy plan and identifying what those goals should be, as well as implementation priorities. And when we say that, we also mean, like, where do we start? In what order do we pursue things? And what community commitments do we want to make? And then for next steps associated with this, and again, this is a conversation starter. This isn't necessarily the plan or process by any means. We're talking about considering and confirming ACC Gov internal processes. So on our end, that's figuring out all of the review cycles that go into producing a government-backed document. So who all within county government needs to review and have eyes on this and sign off on it, as well as on our end, then we need to get started outlining and identifying and or confirming the priorities based on community and stakeholder values, and then developing the plan and starting with this input process. So now I'll just kind of ask, what are your thoughts on this so far?
Well, one thing was thinking is that I think these the last few meetings where we've had the report backs and the notes that have been written up from the various meetings, I just think those have been really, really interesting. And I don't know how difficult it would be, and I don't even mean that it would have to be. I would love to see, as a CAB member, a compilation of all those, like in one document. And I'm not even asking that you kind of do any organization to it particularly, just because I would love to see it all in one place in a document that I could just print off and kind of look through and highlight things. Because I just think there's been, as we've gone through these the last few months, there've just been things that's like, wow, that's really cool. And that would be helpful to me, just because, to just have it all in one place. And I don't know how hard that would be, if that's possible.
I think that's manageable, like essentially a summary document consolidating everything we've heard so far so that you can.
And you can even just take what you've got. I mean, just take it one thing and just put it all in one. I don't, you don't have to do anything to it. I just to get all those notes and reports from the different meetings and summaries, the things that you've already done, but just all in one document, kind of.
Well, yeah, one thing I might add in here, because I try to remember the schedule for developing of a plan, but wasn't that supposed to kind of like happening like this summer, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think if I was talking to my students right now, it says you better be starting outlining it. So, I mean, to begin to put something together on that, even just here's some thoughts of where it might go. I think that kind of just adds on to what we just talked about there. What Amy was saying, I really think we're at a time now we've got to start putting some ideas down. They might change, but at least do something.
Yeah.
And that's not a criticism. I think it's just this is late April by now almost.
I mean, late April, winter finals. That's people still have 2 weeks to start cracking open their books.
Right? That's right. Yeah, that's true. Don't get me started on that one.
No, we've assembled some outlines of other plans. Like we did a pretty comprehensive scan of how other cities have framed out these things. So we have like a skeleton approach, but then there are some considerations around like, do we want sections? Is this going to be a very community focused plan where we actually have community members writing sections and lifting up priorities? Is this going to be more of an analytical breakdown? And finding that balance between the two is.
But those are great questions to include on that. To get thoughts and input and feedback. And just my 2 bits anyway. So.
Yeah. And I can say from past experience, putting some of these things together, like you can't start looking for pictures to put in the graphic design soon enough. So you guys attend any sort of clean energy event at all in the coming months, or even just a really great webinar and you're looking at it on a really high resolution screen, like pictures, so that we can make sure we're highlighting what we're doing. This virtual environment is challenging, as I'm sure you're aware. Then in terms of other approaches, just for how we as a group start to put thoughts together, Greenlink's going to be lead author in shaping the writing of the plan, with us playing a support role in identifying what goes into it and authoring the stakeholder session. But I say that to highlight they're going to be involved in most of the conversations we have coming up. And so we were thinking a really effective way to get started at least would be to hold a work session where we all get together, maybe try to get fancy with Miro or Jamboard or one of those online tools, or depending on level of comfort. I think Mike has floated the possibility of looking at some point when ACC is okay with it, doing some sort of outdoor convenings in one form or another. But would you guys be open to that as a first step as we start to just identify priorities and policies that we think really warrant a deeper look, to just maybe use our time next month to do that? Or we could set up a standalone work session instead. Or sorry.
That's fine with me. I would love to have like that document, that compilation document, and kind of in plenty of time in advance to just go through that. And then if you all have any sort of preliminary outline, for the plan, I think that could be helpful too, to just how to think about it, that conversation.
Okay. Yeah. And we can maybe pull out a cross sampling of plans that have taken different approaches to this, maybe just highlight 3 that are different for different reasons, where if you have time, you can take a look and see what you think makes sense for Athens.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next up, we have discussion for community engagement strategies, which is going to tap into what we were talking about, the low attendance and outreach tactics to further communicate with stakeholders. So some of these questions might be a little redundant based on some ideas you guys surfaced earlier, but I'll walk through them. If we need to skip over some of these, that's fine. But if you guys have any other thoughts about how we can just be maximizing the number of people that we speak to, and not just the number, but the diversity of people that we're speaking to, so that it'd be really easy to just talk to a very large sections of affluent people who show up to all the green events. But we really want to because the impacts of a clean energy transition are so vast across the community, we want to make sure we're speaking with a representative set of community members.
Again, I know that having everybody participate or getting as many people to participate in the town halls or in the whole process, but to you, what would be higher priority, participating in those or taking the survey?
I mean, really, of all of the above, I think if all people have time to do is take the survey, that's still great. That's insight we wouldn't otherwise get. And the more respondents we can get to the survey across like a broader geography and set of income and demographic levels, the more valuable the survey results are. But if people have the ability to participate in a town hall, that's great. If we just have the opportunity to get in front of them for 5, 10, 15 minutes in an existing forum where they're already meeting and just kind of give a quick overview of the fact that Athens has made this commitment and direct them to the website where they could take the survey or watch videos or otherwise, that's great too. Like we want to meet people to the maximum extent where they're at. And you're right, like a 90-minute town hall is a lot to ask of a lot of people.
Okay, but I'm going to do some stuff from our through our business to try to encourage not only employees but also people who follow our stuff to take the survey. So I just wanted to see if that would be worthwhile, or the survey's not as important. We really need people to show up at the town or at the virtual town hall. So that's why I asked that.
Oh yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for helping get the survey out. That'll be really huge.
Great.
So going into the questions, and veer off topic if you want to. We want to hear what you have to say. But the first one was, of the approaches we've used to date, what have you found most effective? Okay.
I think this, for like the ones I've kind of been the targeted to different business group types or whatever. Those seem to have, the couple that I participated in, I thought were really good.
Thanks. That's great. And then among yourselves, in terms of either this, but also just generally, because you're obviously very active community members, are there activities that you've found particularly effective for helping make sure that communities participate in processes?
Mhm. I'm not sure I understand the questions.
Oh, sure. Essentially, tapping back to that theme of how should we be reaching out to people? Are we on the right track with the forums we're creating? Are there other forums that maybe we should be looking to?
I think maybe what we already talked about, I think what John mentioned as far as the existing, tapping into those and making sure we're maximizing our exposure on radio and the flagpole. I think we definitely, need to get some stuff in the flagpole. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we're also, we're kind of in a transition time. Back to my idea, we need to start working on the plan thing, or not we, but in general. And the time for getting additional input now is kind of past that. Now we started thinking about the more active of how that might be advertised, for want of a better word, or communicated, and that might be in a different type of form. Radio ads maybe not that effective on that, but now you get it. It's got to be more something that people can look at and see what it's about.
Makes sense. Right. And then, are there other strategies that I feel like we spent a lot of this asking you for other strategies, but I'll ask again. Are there other strategies that we, and by we, when I say it this time, I mean Athens-Clarke County, could be employing to help just make sure we're speaking to the people we need to that we haven't yet highlighted today?
I don't know whether I think we should maybe reach out to the mayor and commission, because they do, they do I don't know how many people tune into their meetings, but they have 3 meetings a month. The mayor was doing, and I don't know if he's still doing it, but he was doing like these monthly things on Facebook. But I don't know why. It seems like they should be able to point people, at the beginning of the meeting, the mayor ought to be able to give a short synopsis of what is going on and say, please, go to this website, get informed, because as we're developing the plan, it would be kind of cool if we could really get a large percentage of the community who is just either looking at the Facebook page or looking at the website, and even just like 1 question surveys as we're working through the plan. It's like, hey, we're talking about doing this, what do you, yes or no, do you like this idea? But just something simple that's engaging. But yeah, I just thought about that. The mayor and commission, I'm guessing a lot of people tune into that. So maybe we could get them to help us kind of get the word out and try to broaden the number of people who are paying attention, and then we need to like continually be putting stuff on the Facebook page and putting stuff on the website to kind of, that maybe can, for a brief interaction, just to keep people engaged, just to keep them. So at some point something might hit them and they'll go, whoa, wait, now I am really interested and I really want to find out more,
That's a great thought. Yeah.
We can just appoint Mike and Maggie, since they're not on the call, to take care of that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they have a big megaphone. We should use it. All right. And then I'll turn that back around. Are there ways that y'all, the CAB, could be, and I say y'all, I mean you individually, but also if you want to call out other CAB members who didn't join today that should be volunteered to do things, feel free to speak up. But are there other strategies that the CAB could be helping to deploy in terms of outreach? I know what was it? Your name was not, I believe, but I think you were mentioning something like just emailing your members or networks about this survey. Are there other ways that we can be partnering with y'all to help further the extent of our outreach?
I wonder if Caleb is still on the call. I mean, Caleb, have you had any success in reaching out to, clients for the East Athens Development Corporation or that demographic at all?
Yeah, I was actually just about to chime in that we're starting to do some kind of on the ground go into the community, which was, I know, before the pandemic and everything, was a way that we're able to kind of connect with the community members better and kind of plug them into the different programs. And I know that that's something that we're starting to kind of ramp up again, or at least think about. So I was going to mention that that's definitely a way that EADC would be able to kind of connect with that demographic of people in East Athens who might not necessarily be online as much, or just might benefit from that kind of individual connection. So that's definitely something that I can mention to Fred. I'm actually going to be leaving EADC next month, so you guys will have a new representative from EADC, but I'll try and make sure to kind of relay this information. But yeah, that's one thing, that kind of on the ground go into the community, and I guess just with the flyers and the information, kind of be able to relay the information that way.
Well, maybe ALT, the Athens Land Trust. I mean, they are pretty engaged in the West Broad area, and I'm not sure about the Hancock neighborhood area. And I mean, of course, out in the county is a whole nother ball of wax. And I don't know whether even, reaching out to the commissioners for some of these areas in particular. I mean, some of the commissioners have newsletters. So, I mean, I think it's possible if we could get information to commissioners to put in their newsletters. And like the water bill, I don't know. I mean, sometimes people will put stuff in water bills. And then finally, since there is a health component to this, the Athens Neighborhood Health Center, they have, is it 2 or 3? I know there's one over by the East Athens Development Corporation, one over there. There's one on College Avenue. They are awesome resources, and they're open and people are going there. So maybe we could put together some sort of, they have lots of information on their bulletin boards, and maybe even there could be some sort of trifold or something that would just talk about why am I hearing about energy and health? Just something that even the doctors could give, somebody could give every time a new client comes in, give them a copy. Because I think that would reach some of the demographic that we're having trouble reaching.
Those are all great thoughts. Yeah. Do you think that the materials that we've already created, like the flyer and some of these write-ups, I know we've put together a water bill insert, and I think it's just a matter of working out the timing for when that's going to get mailed out. But between some of the public-facing collateral that we've already generated, and I know Bailey can speak to the individual items in greater detail than I can, do you think those are sufficient to help your groups with this outreach, or are there others that might be worth putting together?
I mean, I think some of the stuff we had, there was a fair amount about how we got to this point, and frankly, I think, like, who cares? I mean, honestly, if I'm going to Athens Neighborhood Health Center and you're telling me that Athens-Clarke County is working on 100% clean and renewable, how we got there and the resolution, that doesn't mean much to me. What more means to me is, okay, why am I hearing about this when I'm going to the doctor? What are the things, issues, factors here? Because I mean, I think that's something where people might think, oh, this doesn't matter. I can't afford this. I'm not interested. But then you read something that says, well, it matters because these are the things that actually have to relate to people's health, and so I think it needs to be simple and impactful. And, I don't know if there's, maybe the labor department or something, giving some flyers that talk about the job opportunities. So maybe some focused trifolds, very simple, that focus on different aspects that could be distributed to places where people go, the unemployment office, just things that begin to make people think, wow, I know this isn't happening today. It isn't something I can necessarily take advantage of today, but this is interesting.
Those are all great thoughts. Yeah.
And I'm sorry Melinda's not on the call, but I mean, I would think the office that she works for, I mean, they have, they are giving out CDBG grants and these grants to all these different organizations that work with a lot of the demographics that we want to know what's going on. And so I feel like they would be a great partner in if we could come up with some, it doesn't have to be fancy or expensive, just these, like I said, just little trifold things that could be handed out, that agencies could hand out to clients, and just get out there and then have big, bold, this is how you get engaged. This is how you find out more,
I really like those thoughts. And with that, I think the last remaining item was wrap up, unless anybody has any other thoughts they wanted to make sure we captured as we move forward. All right. So then here's just conclusion of key takeaways. So we've done a lot of one-on-ones. We're going to keep going with them. We have a few more public town halls scheduled. We want the community surveys out, and we'll benefit from as many respondents as we can get to respond. The plan development is going to get underway in about a month. And we're really grateful for the support you've been giving us in this outreach and the insights you've provided today. And any extra help or thoughts you have, we appreciate it. If you have thoughts after this call of other ways you think we could approach things, just send them our way via email. I know you guys aren't shy, but we really do welcome that feedback. And for next month, we'll keep reporting out on the town halls and any continuing one-on-ones that we've been having, as well as an update on the survey. Hopefully the response rate will be high enough that we'll have some findings that will be at a place where they're ready to be reported out. And we'll dig in deeper on the plan outline. Are there any other items that you'd like us to try to cover in our next meeting?
Kind of random question. Do you know about how long it takes to do the survey?
Not long.
Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Yeah.
I think 5-ish. Does that sound right, Bailey?
Yeah, I think there are some open-ended questions. I believe, and so I think that it depends how long you would take commenting.
Okay.
But I would say 5 minutes or a little bit more than that. It's not less than 5 minutes, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Then, as usual, you can contact Mike or Maggie. I guess they'll have to take your word for it on whatever you tell them. Although this video is streamed on YouTube, it will be made available on the website, but don't hesitate to reach out. You have our info too. Let us know if anything comes up. And thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye.